Okay. So we're going to do just part of this lesson. Okay. Just because way back that snow day set us back. So we need to catch up, and this is a good lesson to catch up. Okay. So based on the lesson you just watched, simple versus compound interest, you should have that handout completely filled out. Now we have just compound interest we're going to look at. Okay. So just to refresh your memory, this is the formula for compound interest. A represents the final amount that I'm looking for. P represents the principal, which is my starting amount. I represents my interest rate as a decimal. Very important as a decimal. And N represents the number of times the interest is earned. That's very important. That's basically what we're going to look at in this table on this page. Okay, so you should have that completely filled out. Obviously, you can pause the video because I'm going to move the paper. Okay, so we have different compounded periods. So we saw in the previous handout, everything we did was compounded annually, which means once a year. Okay, so annually, we're going to look at an interest rate of 2%, 2.19% per annum for all of these. Okay, it means per year. Then it's going to say, for compound interest, you'll always see something that says compounded however much. So you'll see, for example, Sarah invested 2.19% per annum, compounded annually. What that means is compounded once a year. Okay? Semi-annually means twice a year. Quarterly means 4 times a year. Monthly, 12 months in a year, 12 times a year. Weekly, there's 52 weeks in a year, so 52 times a year. And bi-weekly, if there's 52 weeks in a year, if there's 52 weeks in a year, then bi-weekly is every other week, so half the amount. So we do 26 times a year. And daily, there's 365 days in a year, so 365 times a year. Okay? So that's what the different compounding periods mean. Now, the reason why that's so important is because that actually affects everything. So here we have, 2.19%. 2.19%. It's compounded annually, so once a year. Okay? So we only need to divide it amongst once a year. So technically we don't need to divide it at all, but for the sake of the rest, we're going to show that we're dividing by 1 because it's once a year. But that's still written as a percent, right? 2.19%. I want this as a rate, as a decimal. So I'm going to divide this by 100 as well. And then I get that this equals 0.0219. And what that tells me is if my interest rate is 2.19% per annum, compounded annually, this is actually how much I get every year earned. So if I invest a specific amount, that's my rate. Okay? Now here I have 2.19% per annum compounded twice a year, semi-annually. So I need to figure out, every 6 months that means. So in a period of 6 months, this is per year. So now I need to divide this by 2 to figure out, every 6 months that means I'm getting that amount. But that will be still as a percentage. So I need to divide that by 100, and I get 0.01095. Okay? If it helps you to to write it how you want to write it, you can even write it even if you want. So for example, 2.19, 4 times a year, you could divide by 4 and then write this divided by 100 because we want it as a decimal. Totally up to you. And then that would equal 0.005475. Make sure that these numbers work in your calculator too, okay? Totally up to you how you want to write it. So here we have 2.19 compounded monthly, so 12 times a year. So we divide by 12, and then we want it as a decimal, so divided by 100, and we get 0.001825. Here we have 2.19% compounded weekly, so 52 times a year. So we have to take this 2.19% and it's compounded 52 times. So each time we have to figure out individually what the amount is. So we divide that, break it up into 52 parts, and then we want it as a decimal, so we divide by 100, and we get 0.000421115. Okay. Here I have 2.19 divided by 26 times a year because it's biweekly, so I divide by 26, and I want it as a decimal, so I divide by 100, and I get this gross decimal, 0.000842,308, and then lastly 2.19, which is still a percent, compounded daily, so 365 times. Then I want it as a decimal, so divide by 100, and I get 0.00006. Okay? So that is more or less what your table should look like. Okay, now we're going to do one question from this, and then we'll save the second one for tomorrow when I'm back. Okay, so here it says Sebastian invests $500 in an account that earns 2.4% per annum compounded monthly. How much money will he have after 5 years? How much interest did he earn? So a few things. So $500, that's how much we're investing. Okay, that's my starting amount, that's my principal. Then it says 2.4% per annum compounded monthly. Monthly, there's 12 months in a year, so 12 times a year. It's compounded. Okay. How much money will he have after 5 years? And then how much interest did he earn? We'll deal with that later. So I am trying to figure out how much money he'll have at the end. I don't know my final amount. I do know my principal amount is $500. I can't write straight. I have to write on an angle. Okay. Here's where things get interesting. My interest rate is 2.4% per annum. So 2.4% per annum compounded monthly. So I break that up into 12 equal parts because it's that 2.4% is split up 12 times throughout the year. So divide it by 12, but I want it as a decimal, so I'm going to divide by 100 once more. That equals 0.002. Okay, and then my n is 5, because how much will he have after 5 years? Okay, but I multiply my 5 by 12. Okay, because it's 5 years, but it's compounded every month, and there's 12 months in a year. So 60 months. Because I'm talking about monthly, I can't just use months and years in the same problem. I need to convert my years into months, okay? Because my rate is per month. Okay. My interest rate is per month is what I meant by rate. So then I use my formula for compound interest, and I have A equals P times 1 plus I to the power of n. A equals, my P is 500, 1 plus I is 0.002, and my N is 60 months. If I simplify what's in my brackets, I get 1.002 power of 60 Plugging this into my calculator, I deal with my power first, and I get A equals $563.68. Okay, so therefore, he will earn $563.68 after 5 years. But the other question is, how much interest did I even earn? Did he even earn? If I started with $500 and I ended with $563.68, how much interest did I earn? Well, then I can just subtract. So I can say, okay, my interest that I earned is my final amount, take away my original amount. So I ended with $563.68. I started with $500, which means the difference was $63.68 is how much interest I earned. So therefore, he earned $63.68 in interest. Okay? So that's all we're going to do today. So you have those 3 videos. This was the final video. I expect all of it done, all of the homework done. Okay? And then we will save number 2 for tomorrow. And I will see you all tomorrow, okay?